I'm Joy Newlish, 3075 Flagler Avenue. George Carey was my stepfather, so I stand for him tonight, but speak to you as a member of this community, a taxpayer, and a voter. I ask you to return the Tiger to the corner of White and United. There are many reasons you should do this. It's where he stood when you received him as part of the property. It's where you said you would return him after construction and restoration. It's where many locals want him. The sculpture is 3D art that was created and maintained by local artists and students. My dad was the original artist, and along with his welding students, built the Tiger almost 3 decades ago. Then last year, the talented Cayman Smith Martin restored the Tiger to new life with his skill in artistry. As I understand it, the argument against putting the Tiger back is that it doesn't belong there anymore. The building isn't a school, it's a city hall. It doesn't need a mascot. But let me remind you, the Tiger came to life when it was put in place. It started out as a school mascot, but it quickly became more. It became a landmark. How many times did you say, go down White, make a left at the Tiger, you'll hit Duval? It became an attraction. If you had $1 for every picture taken of the Tiger and with the Tiger, locals wouldn't have to pay for parking. The Tiger is part of the island folklore. So many stories and memories, they'd fill a book. The argument against putting the Tiger back is the best reason, the argument for not putting the Tiger back is the best reason for putting it back. It is unexpected. It will stand out. That's what Key West is all about. It's what makes Key West unique. It's why the locals brag and the tourists remember. The unexpected gems you find throughout the island make it a city like no other. The Tiger, like the city of Key West, is strong and resilient. The Tiger, like the locals of Key West, is bold and beautiful. The Tiger has earned its stripes to reside on a prominent corner here in Key West. And that corner should always be White and United. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Good job.
Glenwood Lopez and then Sloan Bashinsky.
Glenwood Lopez, 396 Bolito Street. Commissioners, Mayor. I would just like to share some history with those not familiar with the Tiger. It was originally the mascot of Frederick Douglass High School, of which I am a 1963 graduate. In June 1965, Douglass closed as the segregated school, and it was then we lost our mascot. In February 1965, Douglass High School boys basketball team, the Tigers, were crowned state champions. In July of the same year, FKCC, Florida Keys Community College, opened on the now closed campus of Douglass. The college named the Mariner as their mascot for the 2 years during the construction of the campus on Stock Island. Even though during the 2 years while the college was at Douglass, they had a boys basketball team with most of the players on the squad comprised of that Douglass Tigers championship team. With the closing of Douglass, some of the elementary students who were attending Douglass were now assigned to Memorial School before it was renamed Glen Archer School. It was then that the school adopted the tiger as its mascot. I believe because the majority of the students attending Glen Archer were from the now defunct Douglas School. These students and the alumni of Douglas were very proud because the mascot they had known and rallied behind for more than 50 years was again being recognized. Thus, the tiger remained as the mascot for Glen Archer School. George Carey, whom I worked with at Key West High School, had constructed the conch shell that now stands in front of Key West High School. I asked him if he could construct a tiger for Glen Archer School. He said yes, and he did. Commissioners and Mayor, I ask that you vote to allow the tiger to return and remain at the now historic Glen Archer School, and a plaque be placed there with some of its history. It certainly would be appreciated and justified to the alumni of Douglas and the residents of the area now called Bahama Village. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Mayor, Commissioners, I'm so glad I stayed to hear the last two speakers. I suggest that you make many copies of both of what they said, like hard disk, CDs, and you put some kind of device by that tiger so people can go up and punch a button and hear these two people tell what that tiger's about. And there's a little sign there saying, this is the history of the tiger, in case you're wondering why it's here. We all know why, but you don't if you're asking the question. But here's two people that can really set you on your ear. And anybody who went by there could play. You probably won't have it at 2 o'clock in the morning, but, during working hours where people could. That's priceless what they have just told you. And that, I think, would solve the problem with everybody's objection to the tiger being where it used to be. Thank you.
Jan Rylander and then Richard Talmadge.
I'm here for Form 17 something.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, sorry. That's my first time.
Oh, that's okay. Richard Talmadge.
Richard Talmadge, 1700 Jamaica and chair of AIPP, Art in Public Places. We had a meeting last night regarding the tiger, and my hat's off to the young lady and to Glenwood. It's duly noted, and you're absolutely spot on. This is not an insignificant artistic contribution to our community, and it needs to be treated from the AIPP standpoint with the integrity and the history that it brings. Our board, not unanimously, there was one dissent, made a recommendation, and it's in your packet, that we locate the tiger on the new City Hall property at an appropriate location so that it could be relocated down in Bahama Village at the Frederick Douglass Community Center when that project is completed. That's our recommendation. And our recommendation also is that it really doesn't belong at that significantly visual corner. There are other appropriate locations on site. Our first recommendation is the Butterfly Garden at the corner of United and Grinnell. I think that landscaped and lit with the tiger and a butterfly garden could be quite compelling. A secondary location for your consideration is at the corner of Varela and United, across from the Montessori School, and at the main entrance for most of the people in the community. That's where we're going to be going into this magnificently new, restored City Hall. Those are our recommendations from AIPP. But the really ideal is, the real thought behind this is that historically, this sculpture belongs in Bahama Village. It's theirs. We have done such a magnificent job restoring this building. It is, I've been over there 2 or 3 times with the mayor, with Bert Bender. It is, when we open this thing up, it's a feather in our cap. It's the best work this community has done in the 30 years that I've lived here. And I'm not going to say that putting it on that corner of White and United is, it doesn't enhance the work that has been done. It's a distraction. And I would consider that you would take the AIPP position and our recommendations to heart. Thank
All right,
you.
thank you.
That's all, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Any questions before we have a motion?
I would make a motion that we return the Tiger to its prior location. And I would like to also have us strike a bronze plaque to commemorate this Tiger and have it say something like, the city of Key West is very proud that this work of art was constructed by Key West High School class instructor instructor George Carey, who taught his students how to cut and weld a metal to make this work of art. And Mr. Carey himself being a prominent Key West artist of some renown. Something to that effect. It'd be a bronze plaque so that they know when they see it there why it's there. We're proud of our youngsters, our people that created this work of art. And I think it's just something we need to show, even though we have this beautiful new city hall, that we think so much and highly of our kids and our youngsters and our teachers that produce this kind of art, that we want to display it and display it where it always has been. And plus, like the lady said, it is a landmark. It is something that people know where it is, and they give directions by it, and it's part of our culture. So I say, let's keep our culture, just like we kept the names on that school, to commemorate things that we're proud of. So that's my motion.
All right, we have a motion. That's probably the longest motion we've ever had, but that was pretty good, though. Do we have a second?
I'll second for discussion.
Second from Commissioner Kaufman. All right, discussion?
Mr. Mayor,
Commissioner Wardlow.
that was a good presentation, Joy, but I got to tell you, my brothers grew up with George. I knew him from the high school, and I know what work he did, and I knew his mother, Miss Ruth, and all they were about children. And I feel personally, knowing George and his mother and Jimmy, that he would want that with the school over at Horace O'Brien. Now, that's my opinion on it. I can't see where the Tiger has anything to do with City Hall. I agree with what Richard said about putting it in the back if they want, in the garden. Just a few minutes ago, Commissioner Weekly said, we appoint these boards to make a decision and help us out. And so, the AIPP board made a decision last night. I think the city attorney was there. Like I said, George was in the Air Force with my brother. And I know him very well. I knew him when he was in high school. And I know what they feel about children. And my personal opinion is I think him and his mother would want this with the school. And the school has been moved over to Horace O'Brien. And that's where I personally think the sculpture ought to be. I did suggest at one time that it went down to Douglas School, but I understand that they didn't have the room for it down there. And so that's why I backed off of that, and I just feel it belongs over there as a landmark. you know, that big, beautiful building right there is enough of a landmark that nobody's going to miss. I mean, we've spent a lot of money on that building, and it's a beautiful building. We went through a lot of arguments over it, a lot of fighting going on, but the building is there. And now there's 3 flagpoles there where the Tiger sat. It looks like, anyway, are pretty close in proximity to it. So, I mean, I guess has to be moved, or something has to be moved there in the front, because it looks like that space is already taken. But, you know, you did a good presentation, but like I said, I just feel it belongs with the children of Glen Archer School. Thank you.
But they don't want it. The school doesn't want it.
All right.
I agree, but they don't want it. So
Okay.
we offered it to them.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Okay. All right. Next. Who else?
Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Kaufman? Mr. Lopez?
Yeah, I wasn't 100% sure how I was going to vote on this tonight. It's not something that I felt really passionately one way or the other. Although when I first moved to Key West, I lived around the corner from the Tiger, and I thought it was cool. And it was across the street from Dairy Queen. So for me, I was in good shape. You know, I had the Tiger and I had the Dairy Queen. And as a newcomer to Key West, I got to tell you, I like that. I like to see the Tiger there. So those are my fond memories of the Tiger. I didn't know the history of it. It honestly seemed like a neat thing and a welcoming thing, actually, to me. But after hearing Ms. Joy and Mr. Lopez, I have to say I'm 100% for it going back to that corner. And the reason is what Judge Payne said about it. It's part of our culture. It's part of our history. And I didn't even know to the extent until thank you, Mr. Lopez and Ms. Joy, telling us about the history of the Tiger, because now I think it's even neater than I thought it was before. And the history of the Douglas School, I think, is really paramount because, remember, you go to the building, yes, it's City Hall, but it's still a building. And 50 years from now, people are going to say, well, why does it say the Josephine Parker City Hall at the historic Glen R. Archer School, right? They're going to ask those questions. People are going to say, what is this all about? And then they're going to see the Tiger there, and then it's going to open up some people's minds. They're going to say, oh, there was a Douglas School. What was that? And then there's going to lead to other questions and inquiry, and that's a good thing. So to me, it makes a lot of sense, but I understand the AIPP perspective. I understand Commissioner Wardlow. I understand your perspective. I respect that. I'm very glad we went through this process and having the review, and I respect our boards too, but at the same time, we ultimately have to make the decision, and I'm glad to support the resolution.
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Lopez.
Yeah. Just one correction, Commissioner Kaufman. Douglas School was never there.
No, I know.
Douglas School itself. The mascot was the only thing that moved.
Right.
I too recognize the work that the committees that we appoint, the work that they do, and I actually agree with a lot of what was said about the Tiger not fitting in. It doesn't fit architecturally or artistically or whatever the case is with where City Hall is. But I'm bound by my love of our history, and that is big. That is big. The fact that my brother was dead on with how the Tiger came to be there. Joy was dead on with what I knew of Mr. Carey and why he made the Tiger. I just find no way that I can oppose this.
I'd like to comment too. Mr. Kaufman's right on about the history of the schools. Not only a beautiful building, it's the history there that we're preserving. And so many people, when they talk about the school, not only say how beautiful it is, but they went to school there, or their parents went to school there. My father graduated there. My brother went to school there. And the Tiger is just part of that history. 30 years almost. I mean, there's people that went to that school that's got kids now, and when they take them over there to see it, in a few years they're going to have grandkids and talk about the tiger, why it's there, part of Key West history. So I don't see, yes, you are right, maybe it's not the perfect match for the front of that school, but it's a perfect match for our history of that school. So that's why I brought this forward, and I hope that we have the commission supports that, supports the citizens, and I hope the ones that don't support it, if we do pass it, understand why it was voted to put it there, because of the history and the importance of this community preserving that history. Thank you. Next, Commissioner Romero.
Thank you. Basically, that tiger was supposed to go with the students because it was supposed to become Glen Archer School on the HOB campus. And that was how Cayman, Rob Smith Martin's brother, came to restore it. George Carey was a personal and very close friend of mine and my family's. And whenever George restored the conch shell or the buccaneer or the tiger, he always did it in place. He never moved it. But it was moved because it was supposed to go to the new location to follow the students. And that's why it was moved. It was never in any drawings, nor was it ever meant to come back to the City Hall location. We had a board last night that said, take it to the Douglas Gym, and if not, potentially at Varela Street, which is ingress and egress to City Hall, or the Butterfly Garden, which nobody thought to ask our tree commission lady, or I should say our urban forestry lady. There's no room for it at the Butterfly Garden. That we have to put back the rock that says Frank Butler Memorial Butterfly Garden, and the only place for the tiger back at the Butterfly Garden is under the tree back there, the strangler fig, and we all know how many berries that drops. We heard last night at AIPP, which I attended, we never once heard anything about, we have to put it on the corner. They absolutely said no way at the corner. So we also heard, too, that the tiger is rusting on the inside, so there wasn't a complete restoration of it done. But the school district didn't want it, so why are we going to try to keep associating it with the school? Very quickly, I'll tell you, that was another question I asked of the people who attended my meeting. Again, not statistically significant, but 46% of the folks said, put it down at the waterfront. Now, that's where I think George would get a kick out of it being. We talk about the photo ops and the people that came to it. Why not down at the waterfront? It would be a safe place for people to have their photo ops. We'd have the water. We'd have the landscaping. We can put it near the park. But, folks, that location is a city hall. We've heard some people say, yeah, now they're going to call it Tiger Hall if you put it there. There's basically not enough room to put it there by the flagpoles. I think we need to get over it. We can all express our opinions, and I have mine and other people have theirs as to what George would want, and I most closely go along with Commissioner Wardlow. That was supposed to have gone with the school. Now we've heard the school doesn't want it anymore. Okay, then it doesn't belong with the school. I'm okay with putting it at the Douglas Gym. It's 12 feet by 3 feet. If not, let's put it at the waterfront. But it definitely does not go at the corner of White and United. And one other thing is, people have said if we put it there, people will just allude to the fact that there's a circus going on inside, and I don't think we want that to happen.
They do that without the tiger being there.
Right. That's right.
Maybe it is appropriate.
Yeah, we add that to the plaque. All right. Anyone else?
Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Lopez.
After everything's been said, I'll say this too, and I just want to make, just saying this just so that it's on the record, I would not object to it if that were part of the plan for it to go down to the Douglas Gym. But I want to be clear that the tiger was made as a mascot for the Glen Archer Tigers after they were no longer the Douglas Tigers. They were not. It was not the Douglas Tiger mascot. I would like to see a Douglas Tiger mascot. By all means, I would certainly like to see something like that for the Douglas Gym, recognizing that that's where it all began. But that's not what we have here. So, for whatever it's worth, I would not oppose that if someone were to make that suggestion.
If I may, I think I have a few seconds left. If anybody looked at the resolution from Art in Public Places last night, it basically says placed other than a location at the corner of United and White. It further says later on in the resolution it should be placed at a school site or location serving the kids of our community rather than displayed prominently in front of the beautifully restored City Hall. It's resolved that it goes back to Douglas. It says the Art and Public Place Board recommends to the City Commission that the restored tiger should be placed at the Frederick Douglass Gym once it is completed. That's right here in the resolution that they voted on last night. And then it further goes on to say in Section 3 that if it doesn't go there, then it could be looked at other locations. But their recommendation was to put it at the Douglass Gym. And I can support that, Clayton. Other than that, I think we need to look at the waterfront.
Okay. Any other discussion? Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Kaufman?
Can I just ask for clarification as to what it is we're actually, are we voting to put it at the corner or are we voting to
Yes.
accept the AIPP recommendation?
The corner
Okay.
With a plaque.
with a plaque.
And that would be an amendment with the plaque.
Yes.
Okay. Commissioner Kaufman?
Yes.
Commissioner Lopez?
It's not easy. Yes.
Commissioner Payne?
Yes.
Commissioner Romero?
No.
Commissioner Wardlow?
No.
Commissioner Weekly?
No.
Mayor Cates?
Yes. Motion passes. Thank you for coming, Joy. Break. Need a 5-minute recess.